Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching the Africa Brief on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Egypt has begun parliamentary elections on Monday with 63 million eligible voters casting ballots to elect 568 lawmakers in 2 phases. The vote running through November 25th is seen as further consolidating Sisi's rule until 2030 under the 2019 constitutional extension. Lebanon has released Hannibal Gaddafi, the youngest son of late Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi, following his payment of a reduced $900,000 bail. The Tripoli-based Government of National Unity has praised Lebanon's decision, hailing it as a step towards reviving diplomatic and security cooperation between these two countries. Guinea's Supreme Court has approved junta leader General Mamadi Doumbouya as one of 9 candidates for December's presidential election, paving the way for him to legitimize his rule after seizing power in 2021. However, the vote's credibility is in doubt as key opposition figures like Lansana Kouyaté and Ousmane Kaba were barred. The IMF has said that Senegal has the sovereign right to decide how to address its $11 billion debt. This follows an IMF mission to Dakar that ended without a new agreement, leaving Senegal's $1.8 billion lending program frozen amid rising debt vulnerabilities. Niger's leader Abdourahmane Tichani has announced that the border with Benin will remain closed, accusing Cotonou of hosting French troops and supporting terrorism against the alliance of Sahel states, as the border remains closed since Tichani's coup in 2023. Australia's corporate regulator ASIC has filed a lawsuit against AVZ Minerals and 2 directors, alleging they failed to disclose a legal dispute with the Democratic Republic of the Congo over a lithium project. ASIC has accused the Perth-based miner of breaching disclosure laws and engaging in misleading and deceptive conduct. 8 people were killed after a car exploded near Delhi's historic Red Fort at 1852 local time last night, prompting a high-level investigation led by police and security agencies. Home Minister Amit Shah said authorities are exploring all possibilities, while Narendra Modi has expressed condolences and ordered a full review of the incident. Taiwan has evacuated more than 3,000 people ahead of Typhoon Fangbong's arrival, which is expected to strike near Kaohsiung tomorrow after killing 18 people in the Philippines. President Lai Ching-te has urged residents to avoid mountainous and coastal areas as authorities warn of heavy rain and flooding in Hualien and Taitung. Now for this news, we start with Sudan. UN Rights Chief Volker Turk has urged urgent action to stop horrific atrocities in Sudan's El Fasher. Turk has also urged countries not to wait until a genocide was declared in the region. Let's listen in.
I think it's clear that atrocity crimes are being committed as we speak. The fact that you have a siege is already in and of itself an atrocity crime. Whether or not it qualifies for genocide is again for traditional authorities to say, but we shouldn't wait for any of this. We should act now when these horrific atrocities are being committed as we speak. I mean, there is a call for us when it comes to war crimes, crimes against humanity, to act for the international community. You don't need to wait until a court decides that it's been genocide.
Canada, Norway, Australia, and other nations have stated that they were gravely alarmed by reports of systematic and ongoing violence against civilians in Sudan. The paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, which has been at war with the regular army since April of 2023, that has captured the last military stronghold in western Darfur on 26th of October. Since al-Fasher's takeover after a grueling 18-month siege, the United Nations and rights monitors have reported widespread atrocities, including ethnically driven killings and abductions. Now for this discussion, we welcome Ayanuga Olubengapol. He's a public affairs analyst, joins us live from Nigeria. Thank you very much, Ayanuga, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now looking at this, what are the political responsibilities for the international community and the UN have in responding to this escalating violence in El Fasher, and why has this violence escalated to this extent? Is there nobody in the world who can mediate and stop RSF clashing with the Sudanese government?
Well, I think the UN is doing what they could by raising their alarm, and thank God the UN is now raising the alarm so loud, telling the powerful countries in the world not to wait until this is declared a genocide before they now start shedding crocodile tears and scrambling to say they want to help. Now is the time they want to help. On the part of the RSF, I think what the RSF is trying to do is, having secured El Fasher after the 18-month-long war, they want to use the people in El Fasher as human shield to be able to protect themselves from the government forces who may want to invade and take back the place from them. And whenever these people try to escape, that is what is fueling this wanton killing of people in that location. So that's what I believe that the RSF is trying to do. But of course, just like when Donald Trump sneezed the other time, and the Nigerian government and terror sponsors and everybody who are supposed to do something about the terrorism issue in Nigeria took notice, and we were able to see a lot of drastic improvement and changes everywhere in the last 2 weeks since that diplomatic spat between Nigeria and US. The same way, if the powerful countries in the world should sneeze properly and say they are willing to come in, maybe put boots on the ground, country like US, Canada, France, England, or even the African Union itself, if they are willing to put boots on the ground to checkmate the RSF, I believe that the RSF will be more open to negotiation, because they know that a more powerful force is coming in that will give them more problem. But the world powers are not doing that, and this makes you ask the question: is it that the powerful countries that the UN is calling out to, is it that they are benefiting something from the raging war and they don't want the war to end? Because if they are benefiting something from it, maybe for example, they are getting to buy black market crude oil at dirt cheap prices and other things like that, they may not want the country's war to end, so that they won't be held accountable for all of these things. But if that is not the case, we would have seen them acted promptly and swiftly. But even if that is the case, we are only joining voices with the UN to say, please, human lives matters first, more than the oil, more than the gold, the diamond, whatever it is you are mining of the earth in the disputed region. Human life matters. If there's anything you can do to assist, don't wait till we are now counting in the millions the number of people that have died, because the number of people that have died since the war began is almost 200,000 people that have died. So we shouldn't wait till we are counting in the millions before the world now does what it does regularly: come out, shed crocodile tears, make speeches here and there, and then send armies. Yes. We need those armies now. We need those support now to help flush out these terrorists who are killing people at an outrageous and alarming level.
Yes, and thank you for sharing that. Human life indeed, of course, matters 100%. And now looking at this, how might these actions or how might the collapse of local military control affect regional stability in Darfur and Sudan? Do you think that Sudan could split into two or more countries looking at this?
Well, I don't think the Sudanese government have the capacity. Clearly, the RSF has routed them in many places. I just believe that, and I was hoping to hear countries like Kenya, like Ethiopia, Eritrea, all those countries that border Sudan to also cry out, because there is no way that the spillover from this crisis in Sudan will not be felt in those countries. So I am surprised that as much as we are hearing UN voices, we are not hearing the voices of those countries. Maybe at AU level, calling for help to ensure that this issue is nipped in the bud, so that the problem does not spill over into their own various countries.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Ayanuga Olugbengapol for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now we stay in the region. The African Union has called for an urgent international response, including intelligence sharing, to address worsening security conditions in Mali, where insurgents are imposing a fuel blockade and kidnapping foreigners. An al-Qaeda-linked jihadist group active in West Africa's Sahel region has blocked fuel imports since September, attacking convoys of tankers and creating a shortage that forced schools and businesses to shut. However, schools in Mali's capital, Bamako, reopens after a 2-week suspension caused by a nationwide fuel shortage that has had paralyzed public transport and kept teachers and students at home. Teachers and parents have expressed relief in Bamako, but are still worried about the impact of further shortages. Let's listen into what some of the school teachers have said.
C'est le 10. Convenablement à ce que le ministre a dit, on a repris. Ça se passe très bien. On a repris. Les élèves sont là, les professeurs sont en classe, et puis encore, les nouveaux orientés aussi sont là à faire des inscriptions.
Avec cette petite interruption, ça pourra jouer un peu sur le programme parce que déjà l'année scolaire est étendue sur 9 mois et nous avons même commencé un peu en retard, et avec cette interruption encore, donc ça va nous mettre encore plus en retard. Bon, nous, on va essayer de faire le maximum quand même pour essayer de rattraper.
Now for this discussion, we welcome back Mr. Ayanuga Olugbengapol. He's a public affairs analyst, joins us live from Lagos. Thank you very much for staying with us. Now looking at the situation in Mali, to what extent can the African Union mobilize member states and international partners to support Mali without escalating the conflict or creating dependency?
With Mali is peculiar in that, the problem with Mali is already spilling over to many other African countries. In fact, the Islamic organization that is terrorizing the government in Mali is also one of the many terrorist organizations that we've had to deal with here in Nigeria. And the spats, I think last year or 2 years ago, between the ECOWAS community government, when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu of Nigeria was still the ECOWAS chairman, and the countries whose government changed to military is making the ECOWAS to be cautious, because the body language of the ECOWAS then was quickly repelled by the trio of Burkina Faso, I think Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger Republic. So with that situation, then it's making ECOWAS think twice before they act on some of these issues. And because Mali itself is a landlocked country, and the terror organizations or the local militias seems to be operating along the borderline. So that is why it is easier for them to stop the supply of fuel into that country. And the government needs to personally now reach out to say, I need help from its ECOWAS brother, from its AU brother, before they can make any attempt to come in. But because of the earlier spat 2 years ago, or was it last year, I think they are also thinking twice before they ask for help. But the earlier they do, I think the better, because the more the terrorists continue to gain ground, the more emboldened they become, and at the end of the day, who knows what is happening in El Fasher in Sudan might also happen there if they are not careful.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Mr. Ayanuga Olukbenga Paul for joining us as a public affairs analyst and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move on to our next news. Duduzile Zuma Sambudla, former South African President Jacob Zuma's daughter, has pleaded not guilty to charges of inciting violence during riots in 2021, in which more than 300 people were killed. Prosecutors alleged Zuma Sambudla incited others to commit acts of violence through posts on social media. The unrest broke out after her father was arrested for disobeying a court order to testify at a corruption inquiry, but it morphed into widespread looting. The financial damage from the riot was estimated at 50 billion rand. Zuma continues to command a loyal following in South Africa. Now for this discussion, we welcome retired Major General Sudhakarji. He's a senior geopolitical and strategic defense expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General Sudhakarji, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now looking at the story from Africa, how does Duduzile Zuma Sambudla's trial reflect the broader challenge of holding political figures or daughters and children accountable for incitement, also looking at how she used social media influence in this particular case?
Asoma, good afternoon. Thank you for getting me for your show. It's a very important turn of event which has taken place, which signifies the transformation of the global order in the global south countries, particularly. When I say that, what I mean to suggest is that the social media platform, earlier we had heard about the Arab Spring in Tunisia and surrounding countries. Slowly it has assumed the profile of the Gen Z in number of South Asian countries. And when you look back to 2021, this particular riot, the daughter of previous president may have denied being guilty, but the fact remains the finger is pointing towards her involvement and her incitement. So it is up to the investigation process which has gone in and the objectivity, narrowing down to pinpoint responsibility by a board of executives or directors or the people who have been nominated by the constitutional authorities. I personally feel that that has to be upheld in the rules-based international order. Otherwise, countries like South Africa, it is a member of BRICS. There are other countries also in BRICS who are joining, and gradually these practices will also spread all over. There is a thing called as moral obligation to accept. You know, every leader has got a moral obligation and the technical and the legal obligation to defend oneself. Perhaps in my understanding, Soma, I feel that Zuma, the daughter of the previous president, is exercising the second option in order to defend herself, mindful of the fact justice in any matter may take little time, but definitely the truth is going to knock on the door, and people who are responsible, including her, will be made accountable. This is my limited understanding of the case. Back to you, Aswa.
Yes, and how, building on that, how should South Africa balance the freedom of expression with the need to prevent such incidents? Also, going back to social media driven violence and disinformation during periods of political unrest, knowing that, as you mentioned, it is a country in BRICS and it holds some kind of moral accountability.
Excellent question, Asoma. I must compliment you for putting your finger on the right issue. And you see, the best way to balance any such kind of critical issues is to be truthful, accept the truth. And she may get punished for whatever, because the political authorities, they have a special protection, dispensation that may get overlooked by the court of law. But the fact of the matter is, that winning the hearts and minds of the people for whom you are actually fighting or contesting or projecting their problem. Now, if the compromises are made simply to protect a person by stating a lie, it will tantamount to making manipulation of existing rules-based order in that country. And it will set a wrong precedent for future generations to keep referring and keep following. So it may circumvent this court proceeding once, but I am sure in the existing constitution and the court of law in South Africa, there are provisions. They will get around the truth, take out the truth from the people concerned, and hold he or she, whoever is responsible for inciting the riots in 2021 leading to death of more than 300 people. Now, as far as balancing out is concerned, it's a tightrope walk which the government has to do, because each one has got its interest, because there are a ruling dispensation, the political dynamics in South Africa has gone through a journey of tumult and turbulence. In the past, it has lacked stability, and if this particular order is not withheld, the judiciary will be held in contempt in the minds of the people. Judiciary will be questionable, so therefore judiciary has to uphold the practices of decision making regardless of the consequences, and defend the truth and the righteousness, so that the right decision is given for the best rules-based order in the country. Otherwise, the country is heading for some kind of a chaotic situation in time's end. Back to you, Asoma.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Major General Sudakarji for always joining us and sharing your insight with us. Now we move on. We have a breaking news. According to a police spokesperson, an explosion has been reported outside a court building in Pakistan's capital, Islamabad. The spokesperson has confirmed that at least 8 people were injured in the explosion. No further information on the blast is available as of now. Now we move on back to Africa. Guinea's Supreme Court has released a provisional list of candidates for next month's presidential election, including the junta leader, General Mamadi Doumbouya, who has ruled the country since seizing power in 2021 coup. Doumbouya overthrew former President Alpha Condé after he controversially secured a 3rd term and has now received voter approval to run in December. Several prominent figures have been barred from contesting the vote. Former Prime Minister Lansana Kouyaté and ex-government minister Ousmane Kaba were disqualified on technical grounds, with Kouyaté promising to appeal. Opposition leader Faya Milimono and former minister Abdoulaye Yero Balde remain eligible. According to reports, the credibility of the election faces scrutiny as the military dissolved many political parties last year and suspended the main opposition groups. Now we move on to Nigeria. Nigeria's anti-graft agency has said that a warrant has been issued for the arrest of former petroleum minister Timipri Silva over allegations of conspiracy and dishonest conversation of $14.86 million. According to a statement by Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the funds were part of an investment by the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board into Atlantic International Refinery and Petrochemical L Limited for a refinery project. Silva has served as a petroleum minister from 2019 to 2023 under former President Muhammadu Buhari. A federal high court in Lagos has issued the arrest warrant for Silva on November 6th, granting the EFCC authority to detain him for questioning. Now we move on to Kenya. Kenya has said that U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has called off a visit to Kenya planned later this month after his trip to the G20 summit in South Africa that was cancelled by President Donald Trump. Vance has planned to visit Kenya, one of Washington's closest allies in Africa, after attending the G20 summit in South Africa from November 22 to 23rd. However, Trump has said that no U.S. officials would attend the G20 summit, citing alleged human rights abuses against white Afrikaner minority in South Africa, which claims are rejected by the South Africa. Meanwhile, the Kenya's foreign ministry has said that as a result of Trump's decision, Kenya has been informed that Vance's visit to Kenya has also been cancelled. And that's a wrap on Africa Brief. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.